Dude, we got to see some absolutely incredible Counter-Strike today. Day 4 of the Blast World Finals saw our semifinals take place. We had G2 take on Vitality, and then we had Astralis take on Team Spirit. We got to see the 3 best players in Counter-Strike this year, M0nesy, Zywoo, and Donk, all make definitive statements for why they deserve that award at the end of the year. It was an absolute pleasure to watch Zywoo and M0nesy go blow for brutal blow in their opening series, and then Donk continues his ridiculous individual run at this event. Meanwhile, this is the best shape Spirit have looked in as a team in many months. At the end of it all, when the ashes settled, G2 rose above Vitality on the backs of a domineering performance by M0nesy, and Spirit overwhelmed Astralis down the stretch, meaning that tomorrow we have an epic grand finals. M0nesy and Nico, Donk and Shiro, Spirit versus G2. So let's go ahead and see how we got there. But before we get started, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, so thank you for doing it. And while you're down there, check the description, top link, and come join our community Discord. That went live this week, and it's been awesome to get a chance to interact with you guys personally. Come join our growing community today, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first games. Alright, so here's the thing, it's hard to find a place where to start when talking about this G2 Vitality series, because even playing a man down, Vitality were incredible, and as a viewer, we got everything we could ask for. There were big moments from all of the big names on both of these teams, and they're all so impact heavy, fragging focused teams that they weren't worried about running super deep technical setups. Both teams were living and dying by their ability to scrap for map control, and that led to just so many highlights across all 3 maps. On Dust 2, you have M0nesy hyper carrying G2 to victory. If M0nesy is not as brilliant as he is, G2 go down 0-1 early. He ends Dust 2 with 28 kills, a 1.9 rating. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have Spinks and Zywoo both going for 27 and 21 respectively. But you look at the rest of G2 players, even though Nico, Malms, Hunter, they all had their moments, none of them were keeping up with the fragging production from those 3 previously mentioned. Just so many big multi-kill rounds throughout this game that just kept things so exciting to watch. M0nesy doing God's work with the op on the A side defense, rotating over to B and still getting it done. Spinks had an ace early, M0nesy had an ace in the second half, Nico had a godlike 4K on the A side retake on round 7. Like, it was just incredible. What's interesting from a macro perspective is that it's very clear there is a formula for victory for G2, and it's winning the early game. It's something we've talked about a lot this week, but I want to bring things around and give you an update on where we're at. Outside of the 13-0 they suffered at the hands of Team Liquid, G2 have won 1 or both pistol rounds in every other game they have played at this event. And more often than not, they have won both pistol rounds in the games they have played. And what's even crazier, every single time G2 has won a pistol round, they have not failed to convert the second round thereafter, and more often than not, they're doing that into force buys from the teams that they are playing. These are not full saves, it's just not what's in the meta right now. So G2 are guaranteed converting the first 2 rounds of pretty much every half they are in, except for 1 or 2 cases throughout this event, and that gives them such a huge jump and lead on the economy. And like, I know momentum is a hard thing to quantify, and it's even harder to quantify its effect on the game, but I think when you watch G2 win versus when G2 loses, it's clear to see how much the momentum matters to them. Like I said earlier, they started off strong here, but then they conceded 3 rounds in a row to Vitality early on in the first half. And then in round 7, Nico gets this huge 4K on the A site. And you know, it's Nico. He makes these shots look easy because he's just that guy. But this is a catalyst for G2. They suddenly spin that into just a gigantic win streak. 9 straight rounds into the second half, and they cap off this run with M0nesy having an insane pistol round ace to start off the second half. And granted, they do get broken on the 3rd round by the first Vitality buy. Vitality then run off their own streak of rounds off the back of great CT side rotates. But as we've talked about time and time again, sometimes there's not enough room for a comeback. G2 were already at 11 rounds. They only need to win 2 more to close out the game. G2 bide their time, they weather some big hits from Zywoo and the gang, and it all comes down to round 23. And this is a great round to focus on because it's a microcosm of what G2 want to do throughout this T side. G2 are going to start out banting for mid control. They're going to be making their way up the catwalk, with Spinks and M0nesy go for a 1-for-1 trade through the mid doors. This is going to cause the game to slow down immensely as both teams want to wait and see how each other react to the current game state. The problem for Vitality is that a trade is really unfavorable when it comes to defending Dust 2. You have to make a compromise somewhere. Are you going to give up mid and reinforce the sites? Are you going to put one person on B? Are you going to pull back one of the A players to focus more on Cat? It gets really tricky to make the correct call in this situation, and I like that G2 don't get too reckless. They play very patient to wait and see if they can glean anything for how Vitality want to approach this. In the end, Vitality decided to go for a 2-2 setup. Defend the bomb sites, make sure the bomb can't get down. And that's great in theory, but the problem is that G2 are going to work into a late A split. Hunter, the lone Cat player, listening for rotates and getting ready to pinch the bomb site at the last minute. Meanwhile, the 3 other G2 players, everyone you would want to be going together, are going long. Malbs takes out the pit player to get them out of the doors. Zywoo nearly spoils everything about this round with 2 great kills, first with the op fully blind and then the deagle cleanup onto Nico, but it comes down to the issue of positioning. With no mid presence, Hunter has gone undetected. He's listened for the B rotators, he knows there's a gap, and he gets all the way on top of A site for free without being noticed. He takes out Zywoo to open up the site completely, and as the bomb is coming across, he picks up another on Jax on Cat over peeking, leaving Apex in a 1v2. Apex takes care of Hunter with ease, leaving M0nesy versus the IGL in the 1v1 to keep the game alive, and M0nesy is just too hot right now. Apex can't get that round over the line. An insanely hot start for G2, as Vitality are of course one of the best Dust 2 teams in the world. They take the 1-0 series lead, and we head to Inferno, arguably G2's best map, and because the script had to just be this way, Vitality absolutely delete them on Inferno. And what's so interesting about that is that my G2 need pistol rounds theory is pretty much proven correct by this game. G2 win the first half pistol round and turn that into a 6-1 early lead, and then guess what? G2 only win 1 more round for the rest of the game. There's no doubt about G2's ability to convert the second and oftentimes the third round after a pistol win, so if G2 win the second half pistol, odds are they probably snowball that into a map win. But before we get there, the first 2 people we have to talk about here are Jax the stand-in and his whisperer Apex, because they both stepped up in a big way to win this game for their team. Zywoo was excellent in his own right too, and so was Flames, but Spinks went absolutely missing. An interesting trend is that Spinks really isn't that good on Inferno. It is a map he regularly struggles on, and this was not the time for him to go missing if you're a Vitality fan. But Jax playing around the apartments on the A side and Apex playing on B, they both stepped up in major rounds on the first half to keep Vitality in it. Now, I do want to say, I think G2 have been much better at this event specifically about avoiding really big tactical blunders, but they did have one particularly unforgivable one on the first half here. Round 11, as you can see by where we're starting, they've wasted over a damn near minute trying to get any kind of map control and figure out what the hell they want to do. All 10 players are still alive as they are getting ready for this last minute B push, and let's go ahead and pause at 18 seconds here. Now, as you can see, G2 are about to fall into B. They cannot rotate. There is nothing they can do. They have to commit to this. The problem is Vitality have already caught on to what's going on. They're already pushing down mid to flank, and G2 are effectively trapped, running into a stack of 3 Vitality players. If they don't blow up in this site and get the best trades I've ever seen, this round is almost certainly doomed. We unpause, the push is on. Nico, M0nesy, Malbs, they somehow manage to find the trades. The bomb is starting to go down. There's 5 seconds left. Oh no, there's Jax on the flank. The smoke is clearing. The Red Sea has parted for Jax. To see Malbs stuck in a plant. He will not be able to finish. The bomb doesn't go down. Nico has to hide backside. An absolutely thrown round from G2. And like we said, G2 only won 1 more round for the rest of this game. They couldn't hit water if they were shooting at the ocean at some points. And probably the one that's going to hurt the most in retrospect is round 19. Zywoo in a 3v5 after M0nesy blows up the A attack, goes to rotate to B, and you know, Zywoo is just Zywoo. He manages to ace from a 3v5. Turns out he's just one of those guys. An absolutely dominant win from Vitality. The series is equalized 1-1, and we're heading to Mirage for the decider. And man, Mirage was intense, exciting, all the way down. And this just boiled down to the G2 formula. Win the pistol rounds, win the early game, establish momentum, and don't look back. And it really just boils down to the fact that their entire team is staffed with some of the best pistol players in the game. Even Snacks, who's arguably the best pistol player of all time, he may not be as good an individual anymore, but he's still game to click heads, dude. Like, some stuff doesn't go away. Hunter, also an incredible pistol round player, and then nothing else needs to be said about M0nesy, Malbs, and Nico. Like, Vitality on this first round, get the A side. It's a 4v4 post plan. This is the kind of situation that teams save on the CT side more often than not and take their armor into the force buy round. Not G2, they rotate everybody into CT, they push the site, Hunter gets 2, M0nesy gets 2, and it just is over. And it's that momentum that we keep on talking about. They were able to hold Vitality to no more than maximum of 3 rounds at a time before they fought back and won one of their own. It was just a team effort performance to get this one over the line, and honestly, it's not even really worth criticizing Vitality for fading at the end here. You're playing down a man, this isn't your real lineup, and there's the major to be considered. The fact they played this good at the tournament in general really speaks to just how deep the rest of their lineup is. For G2, this is 2 grand finals in their last 3 tournaments. Honestly, I still have a lot of issues with the lineup. Like, honestly, if you told me that tomorrow we swap Snacks for Glaive, I think this team would be the best team in the world. So, they still have flaws, but when they control the pace of the game like they have throughout this event, yeah, you're gonna win games when you have Nico, M0nesy, and Malbs leading the charge. Like, duh. Speaking of absolutely obvious, to the shock of nobody, Spirit annihilated Astralis in the other series. Now, yes, there is a Vertigo game in here, where Astralis handed one back, 13-3, we'll get into that in a minute, but I consider that an aberration, not exactly proof of concept, other than the fact that maybe people should be trying to counterpick Vertigo more, but we'll get there when we get there. First things first, the 2 maps that Spirit won were insanely dominant. This was a series of blowouts. Spirit started off by shellacking them 13-5 on Dust 2, then the aforementioned 13-3 counter shellacking on Vertigo, and then we ended up on Ancient, a map that Astralis have been awful on recently, and to the shock of nobody, Spirit ran them over. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this has to be one of the fastest 3-map best of 3s I have seen in a very long time. I think this started like right about 6 in the morning. It's hard to tell when it's that early in the morning because time isn't real yet, in my opinion. But I watched the first map, Spirit were on fire, and then I went to go watch the first game of the League of Legends World Championship with my brother, so I wasn't paying attention as much. And so I was kind of listening to the end of map 2, start of map 3, and then I took a nap because, 4:30, I wanted some sleepy time. And the series was over when I woke back up, so I'm pretty sure this series was not more than like 2 hours, which is insane for a best of 3. Which again leaves me in an odd position because blowouts are usually the hardest games for me to find substance to analyze, because when teams are getting run over, it's usually because they're not winning duels, so the tactics kind of tend to fall a little bit short. What I will say is Donk continues to be fantastic to the surprise of nobody. Like I said, not good on Vertigo, they got ran over there, but everyone did, so I'm not going to hold that against Donk. It was his first sub 1 rating at the event, and he's still tied with Zywoo for the 3rd highest rating at the event, and only 0.03 rating off of being tied with M0nesy for the best rating at the event. So if he was like, 10% better in this blowout loss on Vertigo, he would still be the highest rated player in the field. I don't know what to say other than that we are spoiled with the aspect of an incredibly entertaining grand final tomorrow, because right now we are seeing some of the best versions of these 2 teams. When we talk about Spirit, everything is working as it should. I still think Magix is objectively the worst part about this team, but even Chopper is playing better as an individual. The calling looks a lot tighter. They've been responding to adversity a lot better. There have been multiple times where they will time out after a round loss, then immediately come back with a round win. That happened on Dust 2. And then of course Donk, Shiro, and Zontix have been playing incredible around each other. Zontex is looking super calm, collected. His aim looks a lot sharper. Obviously, there was that reporting going around a few weeks ago that he was like the worst body shot bandit in the pro scene at the tier 1 level, but his headshot rating is up. His aim looks sharper. He looks a lot more patient and settled within the system. And then what else can I say about Shiro and Donk at this point? They're both incredible. Donk, you can't stop Donk from getting his way unless you steamroll this team. Like, in terms of the maps that Spirit won in this series, there's just not that much for me to analyze. They looked like they were outclassing Astralis in every regard. Astralis on Vertigo, I think, is actually something really interesting, and I want to talk about that for a second. Vertigo is a very interesting map in the sense that everybody fucking hates it, myself included, so not a lot of teams pick it. So very rarely do you see teams willing to permaban it unless they really, really don't want to have to deal with it. So I do think there's an interesting opportunity within the map pool if you want to take advantage of the fact that people are going to float Vertigo because they know no one else wants to play it. If you can specialize in Vertigo, you would suddenly have something as leverage in these map vetoes. I think we saw that here. It's not a big sample size, but when Astralis have played Vertigo lately, they have looked very good on it, especially on their T side, and they've dominated very good teams like M0nesy and Spirit as of late on it. As like proof of concept of this formula, if you'll cast your mind back to before the player break, the few times where Complexity looked really good and was making some deep runs in tournaments were when they were at the height of being the best Vertigo team in the world, and they leveraged Vertigo in many key matchups to take huge wins against better opponents. And frankly, they seem to just have a great understanding of maneuvering around this map right now. Obviously, there's a lot of issues with the map, there's no denying that, but if you could control this momentum on the T side like they have been, it's leading to a lot of very open-ended games. The way they play around B site late was fantastic in both of their appearances against M0nesy and Spirit at this event. The way they just were late taking the B side, Device was so clutch with the op, Stare and Stown right behind him. There was just no room for retakes from Spirit because getting back into that site is just so difficult. Which is definitely why it feels like an outlier for Astralis, because it's pretty clear they were not better than Spirit on the rest of this series. It just feels like they caught Spirit on a map they don't prep for and took to the task for it. But listen, that kind of advantage, if you get that on like a first map of a series, yeah, Astralis could sneak some series from other teams, especially in a place like the RMR. I will say though, Astralis, you probably need to permaban Ancient at this point. You were awful on it with the old lineup, and thus far, you have not won a single game on it in 3 attempts with Cadian, and they've all been pretty ugly losses. It just kind of seems like you don't have a good setup for the map, and I think that makes sense because your best player is Device, and it's just not that friendly of an op map, especially on the T side. And if you lose even just an inch of pace on the CT side, you're going to get blown up by aggressive T sides, like Team Spirit. Donk's ability to take mid control cannot be fucked with, and when he got it, those rounds were over very quick. I know I'm speaking in generalities, but that's really because there wasn't like a whole lot of interesting rounds. These rounds were very lopsided feeling, and at the end of the day, we are all just waiting for this grand finals tomorrow, which should be an absolute banger. So I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm, so thank you for doing it. Thank you to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor, Milan Berta. If you want to support me directly, you can do so by becoming a channel member today, which also now comes with the added benefit of if you join my community Discord, channel members get access to an exclusive chat room that's reserved for just them and me if you guys want to talk. But as always, your viewership is enough for me, so don't feel obligated in that regard. While you're down there, consider following me on Twitch as well. I'll go ahead and catch you guys soon with another video. See you tomorrow for the grand finals. Peace.